When it comes to buying a home for the first time, most people only think about the down payment, but they forget about the closing costs, which can also be a large sum of money. But who actually pays the closing cost in Minnesota? Stay tuned to find out. What's going on, guys? Brandon here, aka your favorite Minnesota realtor, and today we're going to be talking about who pays closing costs. But if you don't already know what closing costs are, you should probably start off by watching my video up above on what are closing costs prior to watching this one. Now, starting off with sellers, the majority of closing costs for them are going to be realtor commissions, title fees, state deed transfer fees, and prorated taxes that are due. Now, if you're someone who's thinking about selling your home, your realtor will actually fill out what's called an estimated net sheet, in which outlines each of the different closing costs that the seller is responsible for. And at the end, it'll actually tell you how much you can expect to bring home after the sale of your house and after paying all of those different closing costs. So just in case you guys are curious, I'll put a sample seller net sheet that I did for a seller of mine in the description, just so you guys can take a look at it and see all the different fees and basically just see what it looks like. Now, if you're someone who's thinking about selling your home possibly, and you're wanting to know how much you could get for it or what the closing costs would be, leave a comment below and I can reach out. We can do a seller net sheet on your home. Next are buyer's closing costs. So as a buyer, your closing costs are going to be a lot less than a seller's closing costs because you're not paying realtor commissions. Now, closing costs for buyers will typically be somewhere around 3% of the purchase price and will include things like lender and title fees, home insurance premiums, taxes, and of course the down payment, which is included in the closing costs. And for the curious buyers out there, I'll leave an example in the description below of a sample loan summary that a buyer of mine had, which included all of the different closing costs and how much he needed to bring to closing, so that you guys can get a general idea of what fees you can expect to pay. So now the question of who pays these closing costs? Well, for most cases, the buyer and seller, since they both have their own separate sets of closing costs that they're responsible for, excuse me, the buyer and seller will both pay their own closing costs respectively. But in some cases, the seller may pay all or some of the buyer's closing costs.
What?
Well, how does that happen? Well, let me tell you. Well, in a lot of cases, especially with first-time home buyers, they may have spent their whole time saving up money for the down payment, and they may not have that extra $5,000 for a closing cost. So one thing that they usually do or can do is roll the closing costs into the loan so that they don't have to come out with that cash out of hand. Now, how do you do that, you ask? Well, let's take, for instance, you are putting an offer in on a home that's $200,000. Let's say you ask the seller to pay your $5,000 in closing costs, and instead of offering $200,000 for the house, you offer $205,000. That way, the seller is paying your $5,000 closing costs. You don't have to come up with that cash out of pocket, but the seller is actually still netting $200,000 for the sale of their home because you're offering $5,000 above asking price. Now, another option for buyers to get out of paying closing costs is, let's say the house has been on the market for 2 months and there hasn't been any activity, there's no offers on it. Well, in this case, you can ask the seller to pay for your closing cost in general and not have to raise the purchase price of the house. So basically, the seller is going to profit a little bit less, but a seller that has had, the house on the market for a few weeks or even a couple months is probably more than likely willing to negotiate and pay that extra $5,000 just to get the house sold. So as a buyer, if you're looking to get your closing costs paid, it may be beneficial to you to look at homes that have been on the market for a while. Now, as for a seller's closing cost, this one is a one-off. This is extremely rare, and it really just comes down to how busy this market has been over the past couple years with COVID and the low interest rates. But with all of the competition out there, buyers have had to get creative, and I've definitely heard of buyers paying some of the seller's closing costs in order to make their offer stronger. Now, again, this is extremely, extremely rare, and the market has slowed down a little bit At least here in Minnesota it has. So you're not really going to see that too often, but I figured I'd put that in there anyway just because I've seen buyers pay for sellers' closing costs before. If you're in the Twin Cities market and you're looking to buy or sell maybe now or even in the near future, and you want to be up to date on what the market is doing so that you can make informed decisions for you and your family, then you need to be subscribed to my monthly email newsletter, How's the Market?, where we talk about all the different things that are going on in the Twin Cities market. We talk about stats for the previous month. We talk about, interest rates and all of that, as well as any upcoming events or promotions regarding real estate so that you guys always have the information that you need. So if you want to be subscribed to that, leave a comment below or email me directly what your email address is and I can subscribe you to that. And that is it for today's video. I'm hoping you guys found this useful as always. And if you did, make sure to hit the like button below and also don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment if you guys have any questions. But in the meantime, this is Brandonarchie, aka your favorite Minnesota realtor, and I will see you guys in the next video.